The New York Knicks trying to steer out of their 3-week slump, going for their third straight win tonight at home against Sacramento. But there are reports that Knicks officials are testing Karl-Anthony Towns' trade value ahead of next Thursday's deadline. Mark Stein among the reporters saying that there could be a trade done before February 5th. They currently sit fourth in the Eastern Conference. So let's get some potential landing spots for Cat with John Gonzalez and Sam Quinn. And John, why don't you go ahead and start us off with a doozy that could kind of kill two birds with one stone here?
Yeah, I think the Bucks is the obvious one here, right? But the reporting is that Cat is in play to some degree, and the Knicks tried to downplay it. I think it makes sense. Yes, they've won their last two games against the Sixers and the Nets, but January has been an absolutely brutal month for the Knicks. 4-8 in January, 22nd in net rating. A big part of that is defense, right? Because Karl-Anthony Towns, for all his offensive prowess, gets hunted at the defensive end. So the rumors initially over the offseason were that Giannis wanted the Knicks. That would solve a lot of problems, right? Cat for Giannis, Cat having one of the worst shooting seasons of his life. The problem here is that the Knicks have really depleted their draft capital. When they went after Mikal Bridges, they traded 5 first-round draft picks. They really only have first-round swaps to offer through 2032. So is a Cat for Giannis swap from the Bucks' perspective enough? I'm not sure. But from the Knicks' end, for sure, they would love for this to happen. Giannis is a monster. He immediately makes them better on the defensive end. And then you can imagine what kind of trouble he could get into with Jalen Brunson in that two-man game. So from the Knicks' end, they would love this. From the Bucks end, I'm not sure if they could pull it off. Okay,
you guys each are going to have a few different landing spots, and we'll go to each one of you for those. Sam, you're going to go with the Knicks potentially linking up with their 1990s rival, the Chicago Bulls. What could they have to offer?
Yeah, we've heard all this reporting this year about the Bulls thinking of themselves like the Pacers last year, where Josh Giddey to them is what Tyrese Halliburton was to Indiana. So you look at kind of a like-for-like matchup there. Indiana had a shooting center in Miles Turner. Chicago doesn't have a long-term center right now. Could you send Karl-Anthony Towns to Chicago, have him be their shooting center, hope that Matas Buzelis grows into a Pascal Siakam-esque player, find your defense on the perimeter elsewhere, and kind of roll with that? The Bulls have all of their own picks to trade. They have a lot of expiring contracts. You could work in another team with, good veteran players who could help the Knicks right now. I don't know if Chicago is going to be quite this aggressive, but I also don't know what they're really waiting on, right? They're hanging around the play-in for what seems like the 10th year in a row. It's time to take a swing, and Karl-Anthony Towns does address the need.
Just had their 4-game winning streak snapped, did the Bulls. They're 9th in the Eastern Conference. John, why do you think it could make sense to send Karl-Anthony Towns to the team that's sitting 9th in the West, the Portland Trail Blazers?
Yeah, this is interesting because part of the reporting around Giannis potentially being available is that the Knicks might be interested in Jrue Holiday, and that would do a couple of different things. One, automatically, he'd be a great fit with Jalen Brunson in the backcourt. And it would give the Knicks really great perimeter defense as well. Plus, and this is the important component with the Giannis part, is that it would be attractive to Giannis because he won a championship with Jrue Holiday in Milwaukee. Now, those rumors were initiated around some combination of Mikal Bridges and parts for Jrue Holiday. We're kind of just cutting out the middleman here and going right for Jrue Holiday and Karl-Anthony Towns. Maybe you throw in a Jeremy Grant for salary matching purposes, Gershon Yabusele along with Cat from the Knicks end. And then I think if you're the Blazers, maybe you sprinkle in a little draft capital because you're getting Cat, and then also you're getting off Jeremy Grant's contract, which you've been trying to do for some time now. And they do have some good draft assets. They've got a couple of pick swaps from the Bucks. They've got a couple of first-round picks. So maybe you put some of those in that deal and get Jrue Holiday and Jeremy Grant, and then you reroute some of that draft assets in order to try to acquire Giannis. But I like this from both ends. Just on from a theoretical academic perspective, I could see a nice fit for Karl-Anthony Towns in the Pacific Northwest, and certainly Jrue Holiday would fit great in New York.
Yeah, what I like about this is that it reminds me a little bit of Minnesota, where Karl-Anthony Towns played with Rudy Gobert, a rim-protecting center who could protect him a little bit on defense. Donovan Clingan really emerging as that sort of defensive force for Portland. If you put Karl-Anthony Towns next to him, maybe he wouldn't get picked on quite so much defensively. Portland takes a ton of threes. They're near the top of the league in three-point attempt rate, but they make the lowest percentage of all of basketball. If you put Karl-Anthony Towns in there at power forward, you increase the shooting a little bit. Plus, you could could run some lineups with him at center, which I think when Scoot Henderson does eventually come back, that could be pretty helpful for him. There's nothing more valuable for a guard who struggles to shoot than a big man who can. So I think there's a lot of basketball sense in a trade like this. It makes sense offensively, makes sense defensively.
Trade deadline is a week from Thursday as we look for potential landing spots for Karl-Anthony Towns if the Knicks ship him out. And Sam, you're going to stay out west with the New Orleans Pelicans, who are sitting in last place.
Yeah, I just so badly want to get this team some more shooting, right? I mean, Derek Queen has emerged as this really valuable offensive player as a rookie. He's in a pairing with Zion Williamson right now. They're both playing well. I just don't know if I want to build around two big men who need to have the ball a lot and aren't great three-point shooters. Could you do something where Karl-Anthony Towns is the big man next to Derek Queen? You'd still have defensive issues, of course, but you'd get that spacing, which would maybe make life a little bit easier, not only for Queen, but for Jeremiah Fears. They've got a lot of mid-sized contracts they could trade, whether it's DeJounte Murray or Jordan Poole. I'm sure the Knicks would love to get their hands on Herb Jones as a defender. Not sure the Pelicans are interested in giving him up, but they do control their own picks. And as Atlanta is learning this season, owning Pelicans picks is a pretty interesting thing to do.
Sam loves to rope in the Pelicans here. What a mighty fall this would be for Karl-Anthony Towns to go from an ascendant Wolves team, gets shipped out to New York for salary purposes. Then he's on a Knicks team where they're in the first Eastern Conference Finals in 25 years, coming to this season thinking they're contenders. They're going to potentially make the finals, maybe even win it this year. And then all of a sudden, halfway through the season, the Knicks look around and go, oh man, our defense is absolutely putrid. And it's because of Karl-Anthony Towns. And now your reward for that is exile to New Orleans. Everybody can find Sam on Twitter for that opinion.
John, you got one more potential landing spot that might be a little bit better than New Orleans.
Yeah, this one, I'm going to admit that this is a little bit of an NBA fantasy camp kind of idea, but it's the Phoenix Suns, and they've been one of the most pleasant surprises in the NBA all season. They're 27-19. They're 7th in the West. They're only a half game behind the Wolves for 6th place in the West and the playoffs proper. So why would they want to mess with a good thing, right? Well, because Booker and Karl-Anthony Towns have openly talked about one day playing with each other. And the Suns do love to tinker. We know that Matt Ishbia, the owner, likes to take big swings. They traded for Kevin Durant. That didn't work out. They traded for Bradley Beal. That didn't work out. Maybe a trade for Karl-Anthony Towns could potentially work out. Now, salary matching purposes, this is not an easy one to pull off. It'd have to be something like Dillon Brooks, Royce O'Neal, and Grayson Allen. That's a big part of the Suns' core. I'm not sure that they would do that or that they should do that. Maybe they loop in a third team. The other problem here is that the Suns, as we all know, have limited assets because they've traded them all away. They've got 3 second-rounders that they could possibly use. But the idea of Devin Booker and Karl-Anthony Towns together is interesting. Plus, they haven't really seen Jalen Green, who they acquired in that Kevin Durant trade, on that team as well. So they have a ton of offensive firepower there. Not sure who would play defense. That would certainly be a problem. But here at NBA Fantasy Camp, we're not concerned with those sorts of things, and it's interesting to think about.
John, what did Mark Williams ever do to you? He's having such a good year. Why are we disturbing that Phoenix front court? Everybody's so happy there. I don't think you can afford to give up Dillon Brooks, who's been the culture setter for them all year. Mark Williams having a great year. I don't want him fighting with Cat for minutes. Maybe you could do something with the Jalen Green contract. He's obviously barely played this year, not essential, but I'm not sure the Knicks would be interested. It's a tough match from a trade perspective. Leave Mark Williams alone.
All right, Karl-Anthony Towns under contract for one more year, then a player option. We'll see if he moves over the next 9 days or so, with the deadline coming up a week from Thursday. Sam Quinn and John Gonzalez at CBSSports.com. Sam Quinn has an article up today, Deadline Buyer's Guide, how contenders can make moves before next Thursday. And Karl-Anthony Towns might be one of those guys on the move. The 5-time All-Star is on the block potentially in New York.